commandments which I command you today, you must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land of which the Lord swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. We'll conclude our reading at this point, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 3.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Willard Evans, and for the next half hour, I'll be reading from the April 2nd, 2026 issue of the Challenger Community News on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Leading off, Open Buffalo Soil Project finds dangerously high levels of lead contamination on the east side. Earlier this week, after months of community outreach, analysis, and research, Open Buffalo released its East Side Soil Project report for 2026 during a press conference with representatives from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, to discuss its findings. The East Side Soil Project was the first widespread effort to understand the scope of lead contamination on East Side residential properties. The results were alarming. The state found the average amount of lead in 70% of the 130 yards tested was more than 3 times higher than what the Environmental Protection Agency considers safe for everyday contact. 2 of the properties tested were in close proximity to a school. East Side residents have long dealt with disparate socioeconomic realities, environmental racism, and daily exposure to deadly toxins carried through the air, water, and soil, said Franchelle Parker, Executive Director of Open Buffalo. We recognize that lead-contaminated soil is only one of many contributing factors to many of the health and academic challenges facing residents, and, moreover, that such problems can be found in other parts of the city as well. Our long-term goal is to explore strategies to reduce the harm caused by toxins such as lead and build a coalition of like-minded residents, organizations, and government partners to address the burden of such environmental injustice. These results are even more concerning given the East Side residents are already at a heightened risk of exposure to lead and elevated blood lead levels from lead paint in homes and from drinking water delivered through lead service lines. Open Buffalo was able to complete the East Side Soil Project with the support of an environmental justice grant from the state DEC. Upon receiving the East Side Soil Project report from Open Buffalo recently, the DEC also made an official referral to the EPA for inquiry into community lead contamination. DEC's community impact grants support the crucial work of people on the ground, working tirelessly to lift up their communities and provide a healthier, more sustainable future. DEC Office of Environmental Justice Director Alana Cadell-Tuckey said, DEC remains committed to supporting organizations like Open Buffalo to address environmental harms and health hazards that communities face in New York. DEC looks forward to ongoing communication and collaboration on environmental issues that impact the East Side. A majority of soil samples that were collected and analyzed were from properties in Buffalo's Maston district, said Maston Councilmember Zanita B. Everhart. Upon the Soil Project report release, I want to express my gratitude to Open Buffalo, Citizen Science Community Resources, and faculty from the University at Buffalo's Department of Environment and Sustainability for conducting this study. We cannot deny that the soil test results are extremely disheartening. The soil is just one of many different factors that have aided in critical health issues. I stand with Open Buffalo in combating this issue, and I am calling on our partners in government at the state and federal levels to take this report seriously and help aid residents through this growing health crisis. There is a path forward, and we must work together to ensure the safety of all residents across the city of Buffalo. Deborah Fugate, a resident of Buffalo's historic Hamlin Park neighborhood and avid gardener, chose to have her property tested for lead. I want to know what's in there, Fugate said. So when Open Buffalo did the testing and I got the results, I was really surprised, knowing that all this lead is in my soil. So I went from growing my potatoes in the ground to growing them in a bag, because that way I can control what they're growing in. Beyond her personal gardens and living space, Fugate said about community lead contamination concerns, I don't want to see a child sick. I've seen a child sick from lead poisoning, and it's very scary. Eastside residents face a number of environmental threats stemming from legacy toxins in the water and soil from Buffalo's industrial past, and ongoing exposure to carcinogens from vehicle exhaust from traffic on the Kensington Expressway. The combination of these toxic pollutants has placed Eastside residents at demonstrably increased risk of health problems, including lupus, heart and kidney disease, learning disabilities, and developmental delays, and a lower life expectancy. Visit www.openbuffalo.org to view the ESSP in-depth results along with background, context, and recommendations to make Buffalo a safer place to raise a family. 3 of those recommendations include creation of a city ecological justice oversight board, comprehensive testing and mapping of soil contamination in Buffalo, dedicating public funding for residents looking to remediate their properties. Open Buffalo is grateful for productive partnerships in local and state government and remains committed to advancing the truth about environmental conditions in Buffalo and solutions to remove as many environmental health hazards as possible. Our next article is from the Inside Albany column, Baskin Sturpey calling for Fresh Communities Act to be included in budget. From Albany, Senator April N.M. Baskin and Assemblymember Al Sturpey were joined last week by lawmakers, advocates, and stakeholders from across New York to call for the Fresh Communities Act to be included in the final state budget. The legislation, formerly known as the Food Retail Establishment Subsidization for Healthy Communities Act, has already been included in the Senate's one-house budget proposals, along with $10 million to implement the Grants and Loan Assistance Program. Supporters are now urging state leaders to carry the measure across the finish. The Fresh Communities Act would provide loans, loan guarantees, interest subsidies, and grants to businesses, municipalities, nonprofit organizations, and local development corporations to help retain, expand, or establish grocery stores in underserved areas. In this way, the program aims to improve access to healthy food while also driving job creation and supporting New York's agricultural economy. Senator Baskin said, "Getting the Fresh Communities Act into the Senate one-house budget was a major step forward, but we cannot stop there," said Senator Baskin. In the wake of the May 14, 2022 mass shooting at a Tops Market in Buffalo, we saw the devastating impact of a community having limited grocery access. Every community deserves a grocery store, and we need more small businesses leading that charge, not multi-billion-dollar chains. The Fresh Communities Act will help ensure no neighborhood is ever left without access to fresh food, while also creating jobs and strengthening local businesses. Now is time to get this across the finish line in the final state budget. To fight the growing number of food deserts, we must support a comprehensive food system that reaches every corner of the state, said Assemblymember Sturpey. No one should have to travel long distances to obtain fresh food and support their family. The Fresh Communities Act, unlike other food access programs, which tend to focus on helping consumers purchase food, helps the stores themselves grow as well. Eligible stores would be required to participate in New York's Grown and Certified program, accept SNAP benefits, and hire employees who live within a 20-mile radius. Advocates emphasize that expanding access to fresh food can improve public health outcomes, reduce the need for long-distance travel to grocery stores, and create new markets for New York farmers, growers, and food processors. My organization has been boots on the ground in agriculture and food systems work for 10 years, noted Allison Dahani, Executive Director of Buffalo Go Green and Urban Fruits and Veggies. We primarily serve individuals struggling with lack of access to healthy food options. Passage of this bill will have profound, far-reaching, and long-lasting impacts for farmers, food systems workers, and in communities across New York State. Our next article is entitled Valeria Cray, Surface Tension Reminds Us That With Life's Highs and Lows Comes Balance. The community is invited to celebrate the opening exhibit of artist Valeria Cray's Surface Tension on Friday, April 10th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Birchfield Penny Arts Center. The exhibition, which will remain on view through September 27th, will showcase works from Ms. Cray's amazing and enduring career. At the heart of her practice is as a sculptor, public artist, educator, and community activist lies her profound belief in art's power to uplift and connect to the soul. A deeply spiritual woman, Valeria's organic, free-form sculptures embody duality and embrace the inherent frictions that define human experience. Valeria Cray, Surface Tension, presents sculptures, drawings, and models of public projects spanning the artist's incomparable career of over 50 years. From intimate studio sculptures to landmark public works across Buffalo, Cray's art is deeply woven into the life of our community, remarks talented young curator Tiffany Gaines. Valeria, a living legacy artist at the Birchfield Penny Arts Center, was principally trained in ceramics and sculpture, her undergraduate studies at the University of Buffalo under artist Dwayne Hatchett were a formative introduction to working with and manipulating metal. She was the only woman in Hatchett's class while learning the fundamentals of welding and sandblasting. She holds a BFA from the University of Buffalo and an MFA from Pratt Institute in New York City. The metal allows the sculpture to become more confined in the moment, yet still maintain a soft line with delicate curves. This gives my pieces motion and rhythm with the strength and inner peace of the spirit, she notes. Her numerous public art projects throughout Buffalo, many fabricated in collaboration with her son and fellow artist Hiram Cray, include the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor Archway, the Spirit of Life tree in the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, the exterior doors to the Frank E. Merriweather Jr. Branch Library, and most recently, the Unity sculpture at the Tops on Jefferson Avenue, created as part of the 514 Tops Honor Space in memory and honor of those who lost their lives in the massacre. While each design is unique in form and concept, a collective spirit of history and connection intimately embeds these works within their communities. The natural tension in Cray's sculptures between strength and delicacy, rigidity and leniency, stillness and motion, reaches a crucial threshold as each piece ultimately finds balance in its completion. Most recently, she's inverted her process by manipulating and resizing elements from finished sculptures to create paper drawings. As each version of her ideas moves from paper to metal and back again, Cray's work visualizes the many layers of her lived experiences. With no defined ending or beginning, each piece echoes the beauty of life's progressive movement and cyclical nature. A deeply spiritual woman, Cray embraces life's challenges as a source of creative inspiration. Her work personifies life's flow, reminding us that with its highs and lows comes balance. For more about the exhibition, visit www.birchfield/penny.org. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Challenger Community News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And we'll turn now to Betty Jean Grant's Voices column. The NYS Community Commission on Reparations Remedies has an impressive name, but how far-reaching is its scope? On December 19, 2023, a bill, S1163-A/A7691, was signed by Governor Kathy Hochul to talk about the issue of reparations as it relates to the enslavement of past and current descendants of African Americans currently living in New York State. This specific bill, or now law, gives the state of New York authority to create a statewide commission to meet, discuss, and gather information to assess whether the idea or concept of reparations is feasible to discuss now, so many generations after the abolition of slavery. Even the correct date when slavery was finally abolished in New York State is almost as controversial as the conversation on reparations. During slavery, the enslavement of new Africans in New York State was subject to the New York State Gradual Abolition Act of 1799. After the year 1799, any child born to an enslaved mother was born free, but that freedom would not be effective until after the female child reached the age of 25 years, and for the male child, 28 years. From the date of their birth to the age of their emancipation, they would be delegated as indentured servants. The act of slavery in New York State officially ended on July 5, 1827, thereby making New York State one of the last northern states to officially abolish slavery. Even after the abolition of owning humans was eliminated, certain rural towns and villages around the state did not drop the practice of owning other human beings until around 1830. The New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedies has an impressive name, but the scope of what it can do is limited by what the governor and/or the state legislature have determined what its mission is and what it hopes to accomplish. There are 9 members of the commission, and they come from areas all across New York State. One of the appointees is Buffalo resident Timothy Hogues, New York State Commissioner of Civil Service. Mr. Hogues was appointed by Governor Hochul. Based on human rights laws, as outlined by the United Nations principles, the 5 core tenets of reparations are: 1. Restitution. 2. Compensation. 3. Rehabilitation. 4. Satisfaction. 5. Guarantees of non-repetition. The goal of the Commission is to identify potential harm caused by the institution of slavery, seek ways to address those harms, and put mechanisms in place to mend the damage that was done by introducing individual, community, or collective Afrocentric solutions and compensations. The NYSCCRR has been impaneled to convene meetings and public hearings until January 2027, and although they have held monthly meetings in person or virtually since 2024, only one meeting/public hearing convened at Elm Church in November 2024 has been held in Buffalo, home to the second largest population of African Americans in New York State. According to the schedule this writer saw listed on the Commission's website, the rest of the monthly meetings are being held in Yonkers or in Rochester, New York. It seems that no additional meetings will be held in Buffalo. That is a shame, because the governor or the state legislature's conveners are missing an opportunity to have the opinions and concerns of the citizens of Buffalo weigh in on whether the talk about reparations is even needed. However, according to current data, 77% of African Americans nationwide believe that reparations, in one form or another, is due, while roughly 18% of white citizens said nothing is owed to the descendants of millions of enslaved Africans who toiled under an inhumane system for hundreds of years. The New York State and Senate and Assembly, sponsors of the reparations bill, did a great service by putting it before their respective chambers, and Governor Kathy Hochul did right by her black constituents by signing it. However, the governor can only impanel the commissioners to hold meetings to seek community engagement and input. It will be up to our Western New York State delegation, that includes Senators April Baskin and Jeremy Zellner, and Assemblypersons Crystal Peoples-Stokes, Pat Burke, and John Rivera, to take up this cause and finally address an issue, reparations, that President Abraham Lincoln started. The process by awarding over 4,000 families from South Carolina to Florida some portion of that 40 acres and a mule concept, but was stopped from completing this noble mission by an assassin's bullet in the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. in 1865. The next meeting/public hearing for the NYSCCRR will be held at the Tay House Lodge, 85 Hillside Lodge, Rochester, New York, 14610, Friday, April 10th, 2026, from 3 to 5 p.m. Moving on now, the MLK speech we need today. Most Americans remember Martin Luther King Jr. for his dream of what this country could be, a nation where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. While those words from 1963 are necessary, his speech Beyond Vietnam from 1967 is actually the more insightful one. It is also a much more dangerous and disturbing speech, which is why far fewer Americans have heard of it. And yet, it is the speech that we needed to hear then and need to hear today. In 1963, many in the U.S. had only just begun to be aware of events in Vietnam. By 1967, the war was near its peak, with about 500,000 American soldiers in Vietnam. The U.S. would drop more explosives on Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia than it did on all of Europe during World War II, and the news brought vivid images of depicting the carnage inflicted on Southeast Asian civilians, hundreds of thousands of whom would die. It was in this context that King called the U.S. the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. Many of King's civil rights allies discouraged him from going public with his anti-war views, believing that he should prioritize the somewhat less controversial domestic concerns of African Americans and the poor. But for King, standing against racial and economic inequality also demanded a recognition that those problems were inseparable from the military-industrial complex and capitalism itself. King saw the war as an enemy of the poor, as young black men were sent to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. In his speech, which he delivered exactly 1 year to the day before he was assassinated, King foresaw how the war implied something larger about the nation. It was, he said, but a symptom of a far deeper malady, sickness, within the American spirit. And if we ignore this sobering reality, we will find ourselves organizing clergy and laymen concerned committees for the next generation, unless there is a significant and profound change in American life. Moving to our next article now, Outstanding Citizens Honored at Niagara Falls Black Achievers Awards. On Saturday, March 14th, 2026, More than 500 people attended the Niagara Falls Black Achievers Awards Gala at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. This was the second year Black Achievers, Inc. held the Elegant Awards Banquet, which celebrates and showcases the variety and quality of achievements of many African Americans in Niagara County. Black Achievers CEO Herbert L. Bellamy, Jr. convened the awards event along with co-chair Modi Cox, which featured musical selections by the Niagara Falls High School Choir, saxophonist Will Holton, and Niagara Falls' own Denisha Osborne. The awardees were also greeted and congratulated by Mayor Robert Restaino, County Legislator Jeffrey Elder, State Senator Jeremy L. J. Zellner, and Niagara Falls Schools Superintendent Mark Laurie. Reverend Craig D. Pridgeon was the Master of Ceremonies, and the Reverend Dr. James A. Lewis III was the entertaining moderator for the awards ceremony. Special awards were to Dr. Renee Kimball, Legends Award, Reverend Gary C.D. Jackson, Beacon of Hope Award, Reverend Lara and Reverend Dr. Raymond H. Allen, Family Values Award, and Aaron Horde, owner of the Niagara Falls Chick-fil-A restaurant, Black Entrepreneur Award. A surprise volunteer award was given to Lakia A. Perry. Other honorees were sponsored by businesses, organizations, and individuals in acknowledgement of their outstanding contributions at work, in church, and in the community. Mr. Bellamy also presented a special tribute to his late father, Herbert L. Bellamy, Sr., who founded the Black Achievers Award in 1972. He is now known as the greatest achiever of them all, and his legacy is carried on by Herbert Jr., the Black Achievers Board, and other members of the Bellamy family. The headline for our next article: congratulations to Larry Bedgood on being named Central Western Girls Basketball Official of the Year. Connie Smith for 25 years of officiating. Larry Bedgood has been presented with the Central Western Girls Basketball Official of the Year award. The honor is given to an official who is well respected by peers and coaches alike. Bedgood has contributed to the improvement of basketball officiating in general and to the organization in particular. The selection of the Official of the Year is made by previous recipients of the award. Bedgood, a Sneads, Florida native, was the first to integrate at Sneads High School by way of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Dream Program. After graduating, Larry moved to Niagara Falls, where he attended NCCC and later transferred to SUNY Potsdam, where he graduated with computer science and mathematics majors. He was hired by Eastman Kodak as a system analyst/engineer, and in 1981, Larry started officiating Kodak volleyball and softball, and through the 80s and 90s added on basketball and lacrosse to his officiating career. After September 11, 2001, Larry was hired by the Rochester City School District teaching math, along with earning certification in STEM and MCLA. Larry has enjoyed working with the youth and staff while coaching volleyball, basketball, softball, and tennis. Larry, a referee for the recent Greater Rochester Ronald McDonald High School Senior All-Star Games, wishes to congratulate all graduates who played and challenges them to give back to the Ronald McDonald House or other agencies. Connie Smith grew up in the 19th Ward of the City of Rochester and graduated from Edison Tech, was also a referee in the Ronald McDonald Games. She has been officiating for 25 years with the Central Western Girls Basketball Official Organization. She also officiated several all-star showcases in Cortland, New York. Connie has a son who also officiates at the high school and college levels. They were the first mom and son duo to officiate a girls' high school game in Section 5. Connie currently works at University of Rochester Medical Center, and outside of work she enjoys traveling, football, basketball, and event planning for parties and weddings. I am honored to be selected to work the Ronald McDonald game along with the selected all-star athletes, she said. Congratulations to all involved in the 40th Annual Ronald McDonald House Greater Rochester High School All-Star Games. Our final article for this half hour is from the Black History column. Thousands turn out to hear Marcus Garvey speak in Buffalo. After local residents organized an affiliate, Local 79, of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, it invited the founder, Pan-Africanist and political activist Garvey, to come to Buffalo to make an address. On October 17th and 18th, 1920, Garvey came here and delivered 3 speeches to the black community. His purpose in the city was to sell stock in the Black Star steamship line and to explain the work of his association. In his speeches, he outlined the aims and ideas of the UNIA, his vision for organizing black people throughout the world, and tried to answer the usual criticism of his program. According to the Buffalo American, the city's black newspaper, Garvey also charged that various leaders of the race had failed and that leaders must be selected and supported by the people. Garvey further asserted that the Negro had helped to develop every country under the sun. Now we must help ourselves. Asked to comment on his policy toward other races, Garvey...
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Jim Michaely, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the April 7th, 2026 issue of the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. First up, front page story titled Speed Coordination Save a Life in Leroy. It's by Samuel Zarillo. Leroy police and local dispatch saved an overdose victim's life Wednesday after starting with only a name and a general description of where he might be. A call arrived at the Leroy Police Department from a person